Hello everyone, welcome in. I got the Boogie Bumper, the Mr. Irish, General Eaton. I've got the whole crew coming in already. This is fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much for the super hearts. Yeah, it's about time. It is about time. Man, I've been slacking. You guys been living this world and I've been sticking behind. Jesse Miller, welcome in, good sir. Thank you guys for joining in. Wouldn't mind if you guys would help out with the shares. As you guys can see, I've been working through that myself. So if you guys want to share this out, help out, get the numbers in here. Let's have a good conversation centered around principles and ideas, not around partisanship, not around which party's the better party, but around what is best for the people, the independents. Need some more beard in my life. Oh man, do I have the fix for you? I have the fix, because I am Jason Lyon, Mr. America, the Bearded Truth. Thank you guys all so much for enjoying your Friday night with me here, 7 p.m. Eastern. Where we discuss what has been going on in the news as of late. We'll center this around what is best for the individual, for the smallest minority. So that's the basis behind it. Taking a constitutional look at things and figuring out just exactly how they transition into this. Is Boogie BW? Yes, maybe. I don't know. That's a good question. I will let the man behind the shadows, the man behind the veil, let you know exactly who he is and what that's all about. So, thank you all for joining in. I'm getting my last second adjustments going on over here. That way I can see the chat at all times, and we can get started on this. So, been a lot of controversial things popping up as of late, and I wanted to start off. Some of the big news from today was the Jim Acosta situation. One thing that I've been saying since the beginning was that it was kind of bogus in the way that his press pass was taken. And the lawsuit that was coming from CNN and coming from Jim Acosta himself was certainly hitting on the Constitution. It was hitting on the First Amendment and the Sixth Amendment. And they were also using a court case from 1977 saying, hey, it's not the government's role to take away people's press passes without due process. So they had a pretty well-founded court case there. They had a nice suit, and it went through today, and the Constitution reigned in again. So whether we agree with it or disagree with it, I think that in the future we will be seeing certainly a big challenge against it. We will see a potential for the Trump administration to fire back and bring this up to the Supreme Court. So it's going to be an interesting time to see how that plays out. I don't like Jim Acosta. I don't like Jim Acosta. He's a grandstanding fool. He's adult. He's degenerating everything. Yeah, no, you're right with that, Piper. You're absolutely right with that. And I've been standing here and I've been supporting the Sixth Amendment, right? The right to due process for everyone, right? Regardless if it's Acosta, if it's Cavanaugh, or even if it's the good old Mr. Porn Star lawyer, creepy porn lawyer, creepy legal prostitute lawyer, however you want to call him, Mr. Avenatti himself. So Boogie, I think that's it's an interesting way that you've said that, and it's not the matter of providing him with a press pass. It's the matter of in the way that it was revoked, and this was the way that the judge even ruled it. He was just saying, look, you got to have due process. You can't provide somebody with a privilege, and that privilege would be access to the White House press pool, and revoke that without being able to allow his voice to be heard. And so I think that even within this, there was also another good point that the judge had made and said, hey, ignore him. Let him come in. He can get all the news he wants to. He can write down whatever he wants to. Don't give him the microphone. Don't give him the time of day. And, no one is being infringed upon then. And sure, when he comes back and he say, my First Amendment right is being infringed upon, you tell him, no, dude, you are able to speak publicly whenever you want to, but these events are not necessarily, your voice is not protected, because then everyone's voice would be not only allowed but encouraged in these things. And so, for the time of that it takes for everyone, you're allowed to be there, you're allowed to be the press, you're allowed to record stuff, you're allowed to ask questions when you're called upon, but you don't get to break protocol, you don't get to grandstand over people. So the judge, he was reluctant. You could tell by the wording that he used that he was very reluctant in his opinion, but he said, look, I my hands are tied. Trump administration, just ignore him. Just know that he's a gnat. Know that you're going to want to swat at him. You're going to want to hit back, and just let him go. Just let him go. And so as much as I don't like it, Fire Captain, yes sir, I did see that tweet, and that was the basis of the first part that I was talking of the title, and we will be getting into that in a very short bit. So with the Jim Acosta thing, I think that the right decision was made. It'll be interesting to see if they want to bring this up to the Supreme Court and challenge it and appeal it, and see if the 1977 precedent will be overturned. It'll be a big huge story if it does. I don't really see the justification behind it. I think, you know how I am. I'm not in favor of allowing the government to censor or silence people, even if I don't like them. And Jim Acosta is certainly one of those people. I don't like him. I don't like his views. I don't like his agenda. I don't like his narrative. I don't like really anything about the man. But at the same time, I don't think that it should be on the grounds that just with the wave of a hand, his privileges are gone. It's on principle, right? Let's go into that tweet. Let's go into that tweet, because that tweet was a good one. It was a very good one. I, of course, don't have it pulled up. But basically, the issue was the Democrat from California. He's been on Tucker Carlson a couple times. He's been on Fox News a couple times. He is the easy Democrat to beat up on because he says a bunch of stupid stuff. And today, he follows in with that trend. And the discussion was around doing a gun buyback. And Eric Swalwell was saying basically, look, we're going to buy back these guns, and if you don't want to comply, we'll nuke you, right? We're going to nuke you. He's saying that this was tongue-in-cheek, that this was satire, but nonetheless, right, if you are an official government representative, especially on the federal level, and you're even saying things like this, right, it's certainly not going to be putting a good look on you or your agenda, your narrative, and everything else. So, as much as I've been tweeting out, talking about the atrocities that is gun control and the failings of it, right? Saying, hey, we're going to take away your right to defend yourself, and if you don't give up your right to defend yourself, we're just going to drop a bomb on you. That's not good encouragement. So if the idea is that he was also trying to make the point that the military and the government has much more capacity, has much more armaments than the average citizen. I have the tweet right here. So let me read you guys the tweet so you guys can have it. So John Cardillo said, make no mistake, Democrats want to eradicate the Second Amendment, ban and seize all guns, and have all power rest within the state. Joe Biggs retweeted him and said, basically, Rep. Swalwell wants a war because that's what you would get. You ought to give the effing mind if you think I'll give you my rights and give the government all that power. So his response was, and I quote, and it would be short war, my friend. The government has nukes, too many of them, but they're legit. And I'm sure if we talked, we could find common ground to protect our families and communities. So, let me just threaten you with thermonuclear genocide. And see if that will bring you to the table. Maybe this will give you the feel-goods. Maybe this will get you thinking, hey, this is the right decision. We should give up our guns to the government so that they don't bomb us. Maybe we should give up the government, or our guns to the government, so they don't put us in gas chambers. Maybe we should give it to them because they're not going to line us up and shoot us in the past like every other tyrannical government has ever done. Let's just ignore history and let's just keep on going on with these bombastic rhetoric. So Eric Swalwell really making the case that, yeah, you know what? Maybe we've given up too much of the Second Amendment. Maybe we need to advocate for more guns and be able to defend ourselves. For if Eric Swalwell and people holding the same ideology around the Second Amendment come into power, then we are an equal force. We, the people, are an equal force. Some other disgusting things that Eric Swalwell has been saying in the recent past was really contrary to logic, to the understanding of firearms in itself. Was he was saying that semi-automatic rifles, specifically talking about the AR-15, right, the Armalite rifle 15 series, was that they're more deadly if they have a pistol grip. Now, I'm not sure if you guys have been around guns a lot in your life, but the grip of a weapon, the way that you hold a weapon, does not inherently make it more effective at killing people. It may make it more more ergonomic for yourself. It may make it more comfortable for yourself, but that doesn't make it more deadly. It doesn't make it shoot faster. It doesn't make it shoot harder. It doesn't make the bullets penetrate further. It doesn't make a bigger hole. It doesn't really do anything like that. So it just shows just another instance in which somebody wants to grandstand over a policy or an ideology, and they haven't even taken the time to go down to the range to figure out what it is that these guns are actually capable of and what they actually do. I'm sure that if you go down to an AR-15, which shoots the 5.56 round or the 2.23 round, depending on how you have the setup, you would notice, hey, this would be really good for varmint shooting. Should I shoot a bear with it? Nah, I mean, I could take a couple rounds, but I could take out a bear. But it's really good for the varmint hunting. It's really good for the small game. It's not really good for the big stuff. And, you know, but let's just rail against it. Let's just vilify the entire idea as a whole. So that's one of the beautiful things about seeing the gun control left and the way that they've been functioning. So Eric Swalwell, right, building up the bombastic rhetoric, talking about dropping nukes on the American citizens, the way a good government should always conduct itself. Oh, more accurate, therefore more deadly. Not really, because I mean, even based on your grips, based on how the grips are set up, you can still have setups to where you can be more accurate without the pistol grip. So, I mean, it's not indicative any way. It's just a matter of how it's being held. So, you know, it depends on the comfort of the person. So, I want to transition over to another absolute loony lefty, and that would be Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And don't you misspell it. Don't you mispronunciate it, because she will get mad at you in the retorts against you. So she is making some news, right? And I'll be honest with you. I was very surprised that she's making the news, because Ocasio-Cortez is obviously a left-wing lunatic in a lot of ways, right? She's a democratic socialist. She's all in favor of climate change and everything else. But she decided to get into a closed-door fight with veteran lawmakers over climate change. So she's coming out and she's making sure 100% that Mr. Bombastic totally is spastic. Making sure that she is making waves within the Democratic Party. I don't think that these are going to be effective for her in the long run. But basically, she came in and she was getting into a verbal altercation and saying that we need to have a climate change panel. We need a climate change panel in order to save America, save the country. Thank you. I appreciate it, Fire Captain. But when it comes to this idea, when it comes to climate change, one thing that really hurts her entire argument and her entire theory is that America is actually leading the way in emissions reductions, right? Something that the left said that was not going to be possible because we pulled out of the Paris Agreement. I hope you guys remember Paris Agreement, right? When we pulled out of it, Armageddon hit and we were all destroyed. The water quickly turned into black mud, smut. Not smut. Oh, I can't speak. Not sluts. Black sludge, and you know the air was just toxic fumes because we pulled out of the Paris Agreement. Well, we still are beating every one of the countries that are still involved with the Paris Accord or Paris Agreement. So all of these people that are still saying, "Yeah, I guess I can make these reductions," they're not doing it. But America's like, "Hey, we don't need to pay you guys to be involved with this. We could continue lessening our side, and you guys can figure out your own way to fix your end." And that's what's happening. So we are leading the world in reductions to emissions, right? We are lessening our carbon footprint better than any other country in the world, and she doesn't find it good enough. So she's willing to go in there and argue with veteran lawmakers, with the more experienced guys, and make... appreciate that, Tom. Daniel Norton. Thank you, sir. So she's going in there and she's making waves, and she's not making waves against the Republicans. She's not making waves against people that the public sees as a quote unquote enemy in some capacity. She's making waves within her own party. And for those of you who, you know, you follow the politics, you follow what these members of Congress are doing, if you don't follow behind the door, if you don't follow behind the curtain, what you see is when you create a lot of controversies, when you get people to not like you because you're so opinionated, you're so full of yourself, and you're willing to argue with each and every person, and you're not willing to work with it, you don't get your legislation passed. You don't get your promises made. So, bravo to her for trying to stand up for her principles. She's trying to make promises made, promises kept. So, I mean, she's trying to follow President Trump in some capacity when it comes to that. But her policy and the way her effectiveness, if she continues this for the entire 2 years, it would be a worse referendum on New York if she was reelected than the first referendum on New York for her being elected for that specific district. So it's beautiful to see her coming in there and causing up these controversies. She also went and joined in on a protest and going to Nancy Pelosi's office. The potential next Speaker of the House. Yeah, she's just going to go up and she's going to protest against her. So she's setting up a name for herself, and that name is, I don't care what you guys stand for. I don't care what the majority stands for. I've got my values. I've got my principles, and F you all. We need a bigger government. You're really not going to win, Ocasio, so enjoy that. Libertarian purist argues for compromise. So it's just not going to go in her way. While we talk about being ineffective, there was a great bill that was just attempted and that was shot down. And I want to bring it to your guys' attention because we have talked about the war in Yemen for a little while, and America's support for it, whether it's financial support or allowing for trade to go to Saudi Arabia for them to make bombs. There was a bipartisan bill, Resolution 138. Which was a privileged resolution introduced pursuant to the War Powers Resolution of 1973. And that was basically saying that, yes, the president can get involved with the war and he can utilize military action or utilize different ways in order to affect other countries. And then after 30 days, for the war powers, it was 60 days. After 60 days, Congress has the authority and the power to take that away, to basically rescind back the authority that they had delegated through this war powers resolution. Take that away and then force the troops to come back, force whatever ways that America is supporting these things, pull that back. And so this resolution was just that. And it was a bipartisan, Tulsi Gabbard, right? One of the only Democrats that I would ever support, Tulsi Gabbard from, I believe it was the 2nd District of Hawaii. Thomas Massey was on board with it, right? So anyone who was anti-war was getting on board with this, and the bill was shut down. So I think that's certainly an indication that the war machine of our federal government is continuing on, and I at least wanted to bring that to your guys' attention, that they have no issues with continuing this on and being what they are. While we're talking about one of the downfalls of government, I want to also talk about the Pentagon. How many people saw that the Pentagon... question, is the States Act redundant replication of the Constitution? No, not necessarily. So the States Act, are you talking about the War Powers Act, or which States Act are you referring to? You need that. So the Pentagon went through its first ever audit, and if you know government, if you've been critical of government in any way, you would guess maybe they got an F. If you guessed F, you would be right. You would be right on the money when it comes to this. So the Pentagon has failed what is being called, this is an article from Reuters, as being called its first ever comprehensive audit, a senior official said on Thursday, finding the U.S. Department accounting discrepancies that could take years to resolve. So they've butchered this up to where it takes years. This audit was conducted by some 1,200 auditors and examining financial accountings on a wide range of spending, including on weapon systems, military personnel, and property, were expected to be completed that day. We failed the audit, but we never expected to pass it, Deputy Secretary of Defense Patrick Shanahan told reporters. So, we're having an audit. We're not expecting to pass it. We're willing to slap the American people in the face, right? We take your money in, but, it's not our money, so we're going to be frivolous with it. We're not going to make sure that things are being properly taken care of. We're not going to make sure that there's nice order or constructed methodology to this. If things go right, we'll just we'll cover it up. We'll just make it go right. So, we did bad, guys. We expected to do bad, but maybe next time we'll do better. It's the same old talking point from the government. It was an audit on a $2.7 trillion organization. So the fact that we did the audit is substantial. So the idea that the government was audited, regardless of how big it is amazing. Yes, 1,200 auditors, Rainbows. And yes, first ever. First ever. So this was actually, let me see if it was in this article. I believe that it was in the late 90s, early 2000s was when they had basically said that the entire federal government needs to go through audits. And so finally in 2018 was when this one went through. So don't worry about it, guys. It's okay. We expected to fail. We failed. Life goes on. Keep on paying us those taxpayer dollars. Woo woo! So the U.S. defense budget for the 2008 fiscal year that ended on September 30 was about $700 billion. So it's the entire spending from the government is about $4.3 trillion. So about 700,000 of that was on defense budget. They're saying it's a huge agency with multiple branches of the military, costly weapon systems, large personnel needs, numerous military bases of various sizes at home and abroad, and troops deployed in far-flung locales, right? All issues, right? For the far-flung locales and for the troops abroad and for the military and the personnel needs and the weapon systems, right? Those are all things that were being brought up about the Yemen thing, that the Yemen bill that I just brought up to you guys. So, these are things that we could have reduced some of that spending because they are riddled with fraud, waste, and abuse, like most things that the government does run. So I'm glad to see that we're finally auditing them. I would like to see, even though it's not a part of the federal government, I would like to see the Federal Reserve be audited. I would like to see how their conduct will be able to hold up with everyone else. But of course, we will do better next opportunity. Yeah, of course, we will do better next time, guys. Next time we'll get a D-. We'll see about that. So beautiful to see that. Okay, sorry, here it is. A 1990 federal law mandated that U.S. government agencies be audited. But the Pentagon had not faced a comprehensive audit until the one was launched in December. Woo! So it took them 17 years. It took them 17 years. I'd like the Federal Reserve to go away. Absolutely, Piper. You are right on the money with that. I just want them to be audited and then destroyed, right? I want it to be audited, lay it all out there as to how exactly corrupt and disgusting the Federal Reserve is, and then just show that out to the people and say, this is what our federal government allowed, and they failed us, and then destroy it. I love this. U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Bocchino, a Pentagon spokesperson, said in an email, to clarify, the audit is not a pass-fail process. We did not receive an adverse finding, the lowest possible category, in any area. Yeah, but you guys still failed. You guys still did abysmal. I don't think that the auditors, the 1,200 auditors, would give you an adverse finding, seeing as they might end up, committing suicide with 2 bullets to the back of the head. I mean, it is what it is. Who initiated the audit? This article does not specify who it is, but it does mention the 1990 federal law mandate. 10th Amendment, yeah. So it is what it is, right? It's a disgusting thing. So we talked a little bit about due process. We talked a little bit about Jim Acosta. I want to get into the Michael Avenatti case. So on Tuesday, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday. I apologize. So on Wednesday, Michael Avenatti from TMZ had a report saying that he was arrested, that his estranged wife was beaten and her face was bruised and swollen, and he was in police custody. And now that is being challenged by Michael Avenatti himself. So he is threatening libel against Jacob Wohl. He's threatening libel against TMZ, and he's saying from November 15th, yesterday, from a tweet, there's a lot of inaccuracy reporting going on out there. For example, I have not been charged with anything, let alone a felony. The charge was the alleged allegation was alleged allegation. That's good. Was a felony domestic charge. He said 2, Lisa wasn't even with me on Tuesday. Numerous other facts being reported are completely bogus. Why is TMZ's new standard the new standard? It's amazing that this guy was also on CNN endorsing basically the same thing, that, hey, we had a rumor, the rumor, we ran with it, now somebody's guilty, and it's blowing back in his face. So I like that people are pointing this out to him. I want this to be continually be put out towards him, like, hey, maybe you should stand for due process, because it will come after you. Maybe one day it will come after you, like in this instance, and we should all expect as a society that due process is given. So I think this is another beautiful time in which we can say, hey, I don't have to like you, I don't have to like the story around it, but I'm willing to at least allow the system to go through its process to ensure that victims have justice, and non-victims get justice as well, right? That the system is given its time to go through these processes. So whether he's innocent or guilty, I don't know. I wasn't there, obviously, but it's certainly a situation in which we need to slow down, pump the brakes, and allow things to go through. Don't let your bias, your hatred for the creepy porn lawyer, for the legal prostitute lawyer, or for whatever name you want to give him, don't allow your hatred of him to guise the process that is due. So it'll be hashtag believer. Welcome in, Shane Sweeney, the good sir. Thank you, man. Yeah, man. So it's the Avenatti case. It's going to be interesting. I can't wait to see the way that it unfolds and how it all goes through. And because if he is guilty of this, then certainly there's going to be ramifications. If it is not guilty, then I hope that this is enough to give a check to both sides, right? The Cavanaugh hearing should have been a good check for people on waiting for actual evidence rather than going off your gut feeling. And I think that this Avenatti case would be a good one for the right to go through those same checks as well. And why would he make threats against the journalist? Because when you are found guilty, or when you are having slanderous attacks against you, usually, the saying is, "What a wicked animal! It's vicious when it defends itself," and that's kind of the ideology there, right? Is that, he is being aggressed against. There are stories being made against them, so there is him becoming angry and aggressive in retort is exactly what Kavanaugh did. And I mean, it is something that people do, right? It is normal. So it'll be interesting to see the way that this plays out. I hope due process comes through, and I hope that people actually follow it up and make sure that you are on the right side of those decisions. Of course, my internet just froze, so we're stuck waiting for this to go through. Ben K, welcome in, good sir. He deserves due process. The irony is thick, though. Absolutely right, Angela. Absolutely right. So you guys know me. I frequent. I'm a board member of the Liberty in the South movement here that is originating out of here in South Carolina. It's a growing Facebook group. If you guys haven't gotten on there, make sure you guys go on there, check it out. I'm trying to spread the words of liberty. I'm spreading the words of knowledge and discussions around individual rights and freedoms, and that's basically my big shtick on there. I've been having a lot of discussions with people, and I want to open this up for you guys. I really want to open this up for you guys. What is it about libertarianism that is such a big turnoff for people? Now, when I viewed this in the past, when I've asked this question, a lot of people say, well, there's a lot of crazy people that are libertarians. And I agree, right? There are a lot of disgusting people that are libertarians. There are a lot of people out there. There was a guy running for, I believe it was Wisconsin, that said, look, I'm running for the Libertarian Party, and one of my campaign promises is that I want to give all homeless people shotguns. I think you can look at that. I think I can look at that. I think anyone can look at that and go, hey man, that's not necessarily the best idea. You don't give people stuff and call it under libertarianism. So there's clearly some deranged people within the Libertarian Party or within the Libertarian movement, but there's deranged people within the Republican Party and within the turn off. There can be socialist libertarians. Yes, there are socialist libertarians. They're called libsocks. Disgusting. There's even disgusting people within the Democratic Party. And we can find them all and we can point them out and we can go, these people are disgusting. So I would not encourage you guys to use that line of reasoning in order to discredit the libertarian value system or the ideologies. Third party just weakens the vote. But that's another good one. That's another good reason, right? Third party just weakens the vote. But if the third party is more in line with what you desire and what you want and what you need, would it really be a weakened vote? I hear from Democrats that a vote for Libertarian is a vote for Republicans. And I hear from Republicans that if you vote for the Libertarian, it's a vote for Democrats. So on that grounds, you're getting 3 votes. What's the group name in South Carolina? Liberty in the South on Facebook. Push me to become mini-anarchist. Yeah, minarchist. Absolutely. Minarchist that's exactly what I am, a minarchist. Boom. The crazies in mainstream libertarianism give it a bad name. Yes, there are a lot of crazy people in the mainstream. There's even libsocks within the mainstream, and so that's a huge issue. But when it comes back to that party vote, that third party vote, if you're voting with your principle, if you're voting against aggressions against yourself, it doesn't weaken your vote. It empowers you, and it will encourage others to also vote for that, right? And so I think that's a good reason, right? When it comes to the crazies and the mainstream libertarianism, how do we solve that? How do we fix that? Well, to use Shane Sweeney's comment or his phrase, pick up a shovel. Pick up a shovel on your own, and you go make the change. If something like libertarianism, right, reduction of the state from their powers, their powers that are delegated to them, their capacity, their spending, if these are all things that you stand against, right, or stand for or against with regards to shrinking, pick up the shovel and you go run for it. If you can look within the Libertarian Party and you can say there's a lot of crazy people in there, I'm pretty normal, I'm pretty sane, I can go and run for this. You have that much better of an opportunity of representing the people in that way. I'm actually fairly libertarian in many areas, but have a problem with anarchists, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine to have issues with anarchists. As a minarchist, I oftentimes dispute when it comes to not minarchists, classical liberals as well as anarchists. We all have a different ideology of what the government should be or if it should exist at all, and that's certainly a welcome discussion there. They are the embodiment of the principle. I think I'm losing you on that one, Irish. If you could rephrase that one. So it's the discussion basically devolved. I had a really good discussion with a socialist today. Absolutely right, Jennifer Briggs. I had a really good discussion with a socialist today, and we both were civil. We had disagreements, but I showed him that he and I at least agreed. In the way that the system is right now, we both want to change to have a better outcome. We both want to see a better world. And I was able to quickly and I would say pretty easily be able to show him exactly why the libertarian philosophy would be able to provide more for the people and also reduce the size of the government. So you don't need a government in order to be a philanthropist. And actually, philanthropy is actually something that the government stands against, right? I shared on my personal Facebook page. If you guys want to find me on Facebook, you guys are more than free to. I'm constantly posting things on there. You guys know me, Jason Line. So I shared a video earlier from Now This. I'm not a huge proponent of Now This. Some of the videos they take things out of context and everything else. But this was a full streaming video, and so they had everything there. And the basic idea was that a group of people were going out and providing food and clothing to friends of theirs. So it was friends of friends. So they were coming, and these were homeless people, and so they were providing to them. And what the police had done, the police came in, and they actually poured bleach. They poured bleach on these people's food because they didn't have a permit. So they didn't ask, and they didn't go through all of the hoops to be able to provide to another, to be a philanthropist, to give onto others when they could. And that shook me to my core, right? Because I talk about it a lot. I talk about, people not being allowed to be as good as they can be because of the state. And to see the state not only just try to stop them, but at the same time destroy these people's property by pouring bleach on it, there's certainly something that needs to be said about that. And so when it comes down to it, when it really comes down to it, we should all be free to be able to make charitable donations to others. We should all be able to help each other out. And it doesn't take stealing from one person to provide to another. It doesn't take that. The crazy policies are embodiment of the principles of libertarianism. So what crazy policies would you be actually referring to? Are you referring to the idea of the Second Amendment and its absolute, which is a strong libertarian value, or like the freedom of not being searched and seized and everything else, the ideas of legalizing all drugs, whether it's marijuana or whatever, recall all troops. So I think on the recalling of all troops, I think that there's certainly nations in which we're involved with where we weren't exactly asked to be there and we decided to pop in. I think that there's certainly a just reason to be in a lot of those or to not be in those conflicts, but we've not delegated. We've rescinded power from one branch to another, and we've allowed these things to go there. Yeah, General Eaton. Yeah, exactly right. There's a guy that, for those of you on YouTube, there's a guy that got arrested for feeding homeless here in California, right? How dare him? How dare him try to help out? Yeah, we were planning on up here in the upstate of South Carolina. We were planning on raising a bunch of food and just going out there, and we would have the money saved up for bail. And we were going to go and start donating food and clothing to people on the streets. We were going to do that, and we were going to publicize it because it wasn't for the charitable things that we were doing. It was more for the message of, look, we are doing something good for others. We are trying to help out our community, the people within our community, and the state doesn't like the competition. And that right there is a message that we really need to hear, right? Because as much as like I don't like the left and a lot of what they say, the police state does have some merit to that argument. We are in a police state, right? When you are told what you're allowed to do or what you're not allowed to do, and you're not affecting others, you're not hurting others, you're not violating another. There's no sense in making a victim out of it or making a criminal out of it. So the truth comes from some random person on Periscope. Anyone who's a MAGA cultist is a threat. Ooh, who's a MAGA cultist? I would love to know that. You all need to be deported to Mars. Joanne, thank you so much. You're truly helping out with this wonderful discussion that we're having here. There's a balance, and we need a smaller government movement, but Libertarian Party is not going to do it. So there's also a discussion out there when it comes to the philosophies and the ways that the government is structured, right? You sometimes do need the extremes in order to really work to rescinding. So if we look at this in a more pragmatic view between the Republicans and the Democrats, the Republicans want to peel it back a little bit. They want to roll it back and bring stuff back in a little ways, right? If you look at the Republican platform versus what the actual politicians are saying, they're not in favor of actually limiting the government in such a large capacity. They want to just bring it back a little bit, and they want to feel fat, dumb, and happy, effectively. And you have the Democrats who are advocating for larger government in a much more serious way. So if we're looking at this on the spectrum, you have the Democrats, you have the Republicans, and right where my thumb is right where the government is, right? And you need the libertarians to make sure that thumb doesn't move away. You want to have somebody out there that's advocating loudly and providing a voice and saying no more. No more. Because that middle ground is still going to shift, right? When Democrats come into power, it's going to shift. And understanding the culture around conservatism or around the Republican Party, they do shift to the left over time. It does continue on. It needs to be addressed, and one of the ways that you could do that is by having a more extreme view. Assange, you brought up the other one. So, we talked a little bit about some of the interactions from the government, right? We talked about the Jim Acosta situation and him getting his press pass back, his hard pass back, as ordered by the judge. We talked a little bit about Avenatti and going through with the due process, and now we have an unsealed discussion around indicting Julian Assange. So if you guys don't know who Julian Assange is, and it's okay if you guys don't, Julian Assange was the founder of WikiLeaks. Basically, WikiLeaks is a source that takes information that has never been challenged on the validity of their content. The leader, Julian Assange, who is seeking asylum, who has sought asylum in the UK, is now potentially having indictments from the American government. And so the charges will be surrounding around the idea of releasing classified information and just doing the dastardly things like telling the truth and uncovering some things. Now, of course, the government, didn't mean to drop that. Thank you, Stefan. Avenatti charges may be false. Yes, sir. And so, like, you know, the issue is that confidential material should never be leaked, should never be released, and everything else. And I can understand that, but it poses an interesting question. It poses a really interesting question now, because when it is authentic, when it is real, and is there to align the people with a more patriotic view in the way of the Americans' founding, of scrutinizing the government, of holding the government accountable, when it's in those lines, is this in the best interest of the government, or is in the best interest of the people that he be taken and thrown into cuffs and thrown into jail? So he's living in one jail cell right now, effectively, and he's moving into another one. So it's going to be interesting the way that whole situation plays down. Marine Mom, welcome in. And so I hope, right, Julian Assange and Snowden, both of those individuals have released information in the pursuance of helping out the American people. It's going to be interesting. Libertarians have the easiest job. No real values, no good answers, but tons of gripes. I like it, 78 Cubs fan. So, no real values. So, you said, if you don't mind, I'm going to break this down for you. You said no real value. So I value the individual. I value your liberty. I value my liberty. I value my freedom, your freedoms, and everything else. No good answers. So saying that you should have more power in your own life and the choices that you make is not a good answer for you. That's fine, but that's certainly a subjective way of looking at things. Tons of gripes. Yes, because I want to, in every way, hold the government accountable, right? I'm much more in line with the founding fathers than what a conservative or a Democrat, or not a Democrat, a conservative or a liberal or a progressive would do, because I want to hold them accountable, because I'm extremely worried about what they do. I am extremely worried about them. And so in that capacity, yes, I have tons of gripes. My father is with you. Well, your father sounds like a decent man from that regard. I hope that he was a good man. I really do. I genuinely do. So I don't know. If you could elaborate on no real values, I would appreciate that, so we can have an honest discussion, because I think that when you look at things and you just make these blanketed statements, it's not portraying a positive message about libertarians, and is also not providing a positive message about yourself. So I would love to have an actual honest discussion with you, maybe one time. With good reason, absolutely. I'm I mean, here. I was looking at Jefferson quotes earlier, and I actually shared those out also on my personal Facebook page. But it's looking at the founding fathers. They created this federal government. They created the nation that we live in, and they created the nation to say, the people, us, the people, you, the American citizen, you have to hold the government accountable, and you have to make sure that they don't grow, that they don't break the shackles in which we've placed on them, and we failed to do so. So while it may look as if I am just here just to thrash and destroy the government, I'm at least doing it with principles, and those are my values, right? Because I want you to be the best person that you can be, and you can only do that by yourself. Social education is best. Infrastructure has no replace in the libertarian ideal. Okay, so social education is best. Why is social education... So if social education is the best, why is it inherently needed by the government? So we can look at the federal government and the way that they've structured the education system since 1972, when they created their Department of Education, which is an unconstitutional department, but nonetheless. So they created that, and we've seen our school scores go down. Our education scores have been dropping. So why wouldn't a free market be better in that regard? It's hard for libertarians to compete with Republicans or Democrats who think they have unlimited money. Yes, exactly. What does libertarianism do motivate people to do good? So what does libertarianism do motivate people to do good? Because when it comes to the markets, when it comes to the people, right? When you're free to make your own transactions, when you're free to make your own deals in your own organizations, what you've seen in the past is that people will work with each other. If we go back to closer to our founding, when doctors first began, when healthcare first really began in this country, it was a much more freer market. And so when the doctors would come and make house calls, the result was that if people couldn't really afford to give them money, they would actually barter. They would actually be able to make trade. That's something that the federal government has prevented. So you can have people being able to trade services for services, goods for services, services for goods, etc. So that makes it people more capable of being able to survive or to succeed in those ways. When it comes to being a good person, right? We would hope that people would rely upon their religious views, because libertarianism is just a governmental view. It's not a societal view. It's a governmental view. Well, I mean, it is a societal view in the way that you don't want to, you stop caring about people. Not caring about people. You stop caring about people's actions if it doesn't affect you. If it doesn't affect others, there's no wrongdoing there. And so keeping people out of their own business, I think that out of business that's not theirs, is certainly a way that would make society a lot better, right? Privatization is ruining our country. Where are you? I don't think it's privatization that is really the issue. I think that the issue is certainly the corruption when it comes to the legislation, when it comes to the regulations, the control that the government has over these markets. I think that the privatization is not necessarily the issue, but the corruption and allowing for monopolies, that is certainly there, right? So you want your own monetary system. It's not a matter of the monetary system. It's a matter of allowing people to make trade as they see fit. So you rely on people to do good on their own. Yes. I think that even when you come to conservative or religious things, right, it tells you to do good. It tells you to do well for others. But there's no ramification for not doing so. Your charter schools are strip mall jokes. Okay. This guy's clueless. Okay. The issue is your damn haircut. Ooh, my damn haircut. Thank you. Thank you. I was so worried that somebody wasn't going to be a fan of my haircut. That's fine. Small businesses are historically better under Democrats, but short-sightedness is our disease. I wouldn't say that necessarily. Small businesses are historically not better under Democrats and they're historically not better under Republicans, right? Because let's look at what the Democrats are trying to advocate for right now. When it comes to what Democrats are trying to do for the economy, they want to increase the regulations. They want to make sure that people are worried about climate change. They want to worry about people being forced to provide services to others, even if it goes against their core values or their principles. They want to increase the minimum wage. They want to increase the benefits that are being provided, and that hurts small businesses disproportionately than it does the big businesses, right? When you look at the bigger businesses, they're able to take on these larger regulations. They're able to take on fees or requirements of buying new updated equipment, and they're able to take those. Sure, it hurts their profits for a month or two, but then they're right back at it and they're growing. But these small businesses that are barely scraping to get by, when you have these new regulations, when they have a higher minimum wage, when they have a more forced outflow of money forced at the hand of government, it's not better for them. It's not better for them in any way. People are not inherently good. Yes, that is true. People are not inherently good, but it's not incumbent upon one person to be forced to take care of another. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Lynn. You need 10 years to do this. Okay. It has been shown that individual giving goes down the more the government is involved. That is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. So when the government takes from somebody and gives to another person, you're like, oh, look at that. Now people aren't being charitable, right? It's because they're already being taken from. When you take away somebody's ability, opportunity to provide to others, and you go, look, they provided less. It's like, yeah, basic logic. We understand that. The Democrats' regulations keep small man out, and the Republicans grow the big companies, keep you out. I would disagree with that. So the Democratic regulations keep small man out. Okay, wait, yeah, so I would agree with that. And the Republicans grow the big companies, keep you out. The Republicans just do tax cuts. Like, that's their biggest thing. They unleash. President Trump has been boasting about the number of regulation cuts that he's done, and so that's not really making it harder for it's not really making it harder for smaller companies to survive or to succeed. It's actually making it a more free market in some capacities. You aren't libertarian. The right has you by the short curlies. Ooh, okay, that's good. I'm glad that I'm being determined as being not a libertarian. Okay, that's fine. So it is what it is. So when it comes to this entire thing, thank you, Mashable. Very good responses and arguments. Thank you. I appreciate that. When it comes to things like looking at, so here's a good indication. So Bernie Sanders is railing against Walmart right now. He's railing against Walmart because Walmart is not paying enough people. Even though they just made a promise that they're going to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. He's railing against the CEO because the CEO, I believe, made $14 billion or $20 billion, $20 million. No, yeah. And so if you do the math and you figure out how many employees are working there, and you took every penny of his money and you distributed it throughout it, everyone would gain just like $10 an hour. So he loses every bit of his money, but everyone else makes all the money. And then, of course, the company crumbles. But Bernie Sanders is railing against Walmart, and he's wanting to implement laws to control the business, right? He is actually trying to infringe upon the way that a business is working because the business is, quote-unquote, too big. It's too big to succeed anymore, and it needs to be torn down, and it needs to be made a fair and equitable thing. Walmart is already providing a lot more than what a lot of small businesses can. And by just doing that, all you're doing is infringing upon the government or infringing upon the market. You're making it more difficult for Walmart to do what it wants to do. And by doing so, right, you're allowing for the government to tell what businesses are too big to fail and which ones are too big to succeed. And I think that at the end of the day, that's never been a governmental role, is to tell us what businesses should or should not be running. They should not be going out there and advocating for or against these certain companies. They should be allowing them to do as they please and And the competition, if they open up the regulations and allow the competition to do what it wants to do, you won't see these monopolies. You won't see these monolithic companies doing what they want to do, because there will be challengers. There will be people that adapt and overcome and grow. And it's the government that stands in the way of that. Cutting taxes does nothing unless you cut the budget. Yes, absolutely right. When they did the tax cuts, which I was in favor of the tax cuts, I said that they needed to cut spending. The problem was, yes, they did increase the revenue. The tax cuts did increase the revenue, despite what a lot of Democrats were saying, but the spending continued to grow, and that caused a huge issue. Absolutely right, Shadow Wolf. That's funny, the left loves say too big to fail. Ironic, don't you think? Absolutely. Do you believe Americans own anything, or are we forced to rent everything? Text. We are forced to rent everything because of an overburdensome government. We don't own anything, right? If you owned your property, you wouldn't have to pay property taxes after you've paid it off. If you owned your car, you wouldn't have to pay for tags and all these other things, right? Permits to do the things that you have already paid to do. You don't really own anything here in America. Monopolies are natural and only stopped by external force. I would disagree with that. Monopolies are natural. Sure. So whenever a new market starts up, there's a monopoly, right? Somebody's like, hey, this is a new market. They become the monopoly because there's no one else that has power within it. And then if there's no regulation, if there's no hurdles, there's no obstacles in the way, you will have other companies saying, hey, look, there's a market. There's a large demand, and this company is not able to fulfill that supply. And so they want to increase the supply. So they join in. Now you have multiple companies fighting for the consumer base. And so the monopolies, while they in the beginning are inherent, at the end of the day, at the end of the cycle, you will have multiples. You will have more, right? It's just like a bell curve. If you look at a bell curve, that's the way that logically, if you look at a market from start to finish, that's the way that they go, right? You start off and there's one company, and then it goes up and it peaks out, and then all these companies want to get on board, right? Everyone wants to make a different fidget spinner, and then everyone dies off on wanting the fidget spinners, and so companies start dwindling away, start falling off, and then you're back down to a monopoly because only one company's like, oh, I'm going to keep these vintage fidget spinners. Congress are a joke. They should be antitrust laws against Amazon long ago. I just wish that we would. Here's another thing that a lot of people have been railing against. I think it's certainly warranted. Is the idea that Amazon is getting tax incentives? They're getting subsidized. They're getting tax breaks for coming to different states. And so I believe that they're going to Tennessee. They're going to be making a headquarters there in Tennessee, and they are getting basically a free pass to come there. It's disgusting. The only thing stopping Microsoft from buying Apple and the monopoly is the fear of government and antitrust. But there's still other providers of PCs, right? And once you would have just one group, you would be able to have other ones that join in. And that's inherent. That's inherent to all the markets, right? Just because we don't like all of them doesn't mean that it's a monopoly, right? Monopoly means that they're the only one there, and it doesn't occur. The president cannot accept gifts. Why is it okay for congressmen? It's always been an issue. I just wish that if the president couldn't have gifts, then because that would be a clear indication of some corruption, that maybe we should reduce the powers of Congress to their delegated and enumerated powers via the First Amendment or the Article 1, and then there would be no necessity for lobbyists or for bureaucrats. So it is what it is, and there's certainly a huge issue there, but the world's richest man does not need a tax break. Here's another idea that that got brought up in a recent discussion, and that was our tax plan. I want to know, do you guys think that a progressive tax plan like what we have, the more money you make, the larger your percentage of your income gets taxed and taken away. Do you guys think that that's a more just system, or do you think that in this instance we should be taking from the Nordic countries, taking from Sweden and Finland and all them, and going with a flat tax, right? Regardless of how much or how little you make, you pay the same percentage as everyone else. Microsoft has the power to control the entire computing market. They probably do, but that doesn't mean that they are a monopoly, right? Because we still do have competitors out there. Linuxes are still there. And obviously Apple is still there. If Apple gets bought out, then Apple gets bought out. I don't think that's the government's purpose to say we have to step in and prevent this or that happening. Admirable, you are hearing the left. We progs are so frustrated that the right wants Amish slaves. To be fair, you need a progressive and a recessive tax. So I don't think that you need a progressive tax. Yes, a flat tax is the only fair way to go. Yes, because here's a little more ideology behind that, right? Is if we understand that when it comes to taxes and subsidies, right? A tax is taking money away, a subsidy is providing money to encourage. So whenever you subsidize, you get more of it. Whenever you tax, you get less of it. We are effectively, when it comes to welfare, right? We're encouraging people by giving them money. When it comes to taxing, you're taxing higher, right? You're discouraging people from getting to that next level. Apple also processor makes Intel and versus AMD. There will never be a true monopoly. Progressive everything, my man. I'm sorry, 78 Club Cubs fan. I disagree with you vehemently, but that's okay. We can disagree, and that's what makes the world go around. People who make billions should pay more. That's why Trump's plan works. Should pay more. Why should somebody pay more for making more? By a larger percentage, a larger portion of what they make. Why should the burden be on one person and not on all people? The idea that if everyone is equal, right? Everyone's heart is equal to another's, then why is it that one person should take the burden of more? The bottom 99% should not have to pay all the tax. Well, they don't. What is it? The top 1% pays something like, I think it was something like 20%, 20-30%. It's crazy. But a $10,000 flat tax would really hurt some. Rich folks wouldn't bat an eye. So Lynn, on that idea, right? It's not about a flat $10,000. Everyone pays $10,000. It would be a percentage tax. So it would be, hey, 10% of what you make, 5% or whatever. Why should success be punished? Exactly right, Cheryl. Exactly right. People who make billions do pay more under a flat tax. Yes, they pay more. Yes, exactly. They pay more on a value, right? Because 10% of a billion is obviously a lot more than 10% of a million or of 100,000 or 10,000. They did when Obama was in office. What? I've never seen that the bottom 99% not having to pay. More than that, like 60. Is it? Let me pull that up. All right. Let me see what we can pull up here. Because this is interesting, right? This is good stuff to know exactly how much So the top 1% pays more than the bottom 95%, as according to ATR.org. Pulling it up right now. 40.4%. 40.4%. Ooh. The analysis of an IRS data by the Tax Foundation shows that the top 1% of taxpayers paid 40.4% of total income taxes collected by federal government. Oof. While the bottom 95% paid 39%. So the top 1% pays more than the bottom 95%. I don't see how this can be viewed as fair or just or okay. We are literally telling people you shouldn't make that much money because we're going to take as much of it as we can from you. Google what was Obama's tax plan versus Trump's now. I mean, technically, these tax plans should not be given credit to the presidents. It should be given to the Congress. But of course, that's too many people, so we give it to the president. I will certainly look that up. I will bring that up on the next discussion because we are wrapping it up at the end of the night. So I want to thank you all for joining in. I appreciate it so much. And I will be seeing you guys on Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. I am Mr. Merca, the Bearded Truth, Jason Lyon. I hope you guys all have a great Friday night. Enjoy your weekends. And it's Friday, so don't drink and drive or ride with those who do. You have family and friends who care about you and love you deeply. They want you to stay safe, or they want you to remain safe and get home safe. So have a good weekend, stay safe, and I will see you guys Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. I am Mr. Merca, the Bearded Truth, Jason Lyon. Thank you for coming in tonight.